Flashback 2 review. I don't know what this
Status
is.
report.
Is this a game?
Where
or-
am I and what am I doing here?
Released in 1992
Oh,
for the Commodore Amiga and then a year
we've seen
later on the
this.
Sega
Saw
Genesis
this.
and Super Nintendo,
We saw the
original
trailer.
Flashback was
Saw
so
the trailer.
groundbreakingly cinematic that it was initially advertised as
I was trying to finish it.
on a cartridge.
As soon as possible.
Long-awaited sequel,
I'm running out of things on YouTube to
doesn't break
post.
any new ground,
So
but it does manage
starting to
break
play
in
games
almost every other way
off stream
imaginable.
so that I can
Presented, sloppily executed,
put it on YouTube
absolutely
faster.
Allows you with progress stalling bugs. I'm not sure you could experience a flashback more unpleasant than this, even if you dropped all the acid at Woodstock.
Review. Flashback 2. We saw the trailer for this one. Corrupted Memory.
You wouldn't know that it's been 31 years since the original Flashback, partly since Flashback 2's story runs concurrently with that of its predecessor, but mainly because this disastrous side-scrolling sequel seemingly ignores every advancement made in game design over the past 3 decades. Basic collision detection, responsive controls, functional AI? Forget it! Flashback 2's alien fighting adventure feels heavily compromised in all facets, right from the opening moments in its cyberpunk-tinged city of New Washington, and it only gets worse from there. In so many ways, Flashback 2 feels shockingly inferior to the original.
Oh,
In
wow.
place of the original's striking cutscenes, we now get static talking head sequences with character faces so unremarkable that they may well have been collectively created in an afternoon by an AI art generator. Returning hero
Probably
Conrad Hart
were.
was a man of few words in the original, but now he won't shut up in Flashback 2,
What's going on?
woodenly delivering dumps of exposition like he's the narrator in a high school play.
Joanna and James, my dear friends, thank you for welcoming us the past few days, Ian and myself, into your group, the Lucanate.
Meanwhile, combat is theoretically more robust thanks to the spatial depth offered by the 2.5D level design, but fussy thumbstick-based targeting makes fights against larger groups of enemies woefully imprecise, and any
'cause you
attempts
don't know
at
who you're
stealth
shooting
are
at.
futile since every guard seems to have eyes in the back of their heads.
Huh.
Additionally, the added depth to each area introduced an inherent clumsiness that had me regularly failing to walk up simple staircases,
Oh my God.
stumbling through solid objects like they were holograms, and eventually just falling directly through the floor and trapping myself in out-of-bounds areas that forced me into checkpoint restarts. You know it's a bad
That
sign
would
in an
make me
action
so
game when you
mad.
spend just as much time reloading your saves as you do your pistol. Playing on PlayStation 5, I'd occasionally come out of Flashback 2's surprisingly lengthy loading screens, only for everything to stay black,
Yeah.
even though I could hear the ambient sounds of the world and my own footsteps as I aimlessly wandered around in the dark until...
I go with like a verdict of like
in
a
another
3.
instance, my gun just stopped working in the middle of a firefight, despite the fact that Conrad's pistol is blessed with infinite ammo at all times.
Yeah, that's messed up. Wow.
So, once again, I had to reload my save,
That
except this
sucks.
time my gun continued to fail at the exact same moment, and did so over and over again with each subsequent attempt as my frustration mounted.
You can use your gun, Conrad. There's no jammer here.
Are you sure about that? Eventually, I decided to brute force my way through this particular confrontation using a liberal mix of medkits and Conrad's feeble and thoroughly uncoordinated melee attacks, which, given the overwhelming odds stacked against me, unsurprisingly led to my first proper death in Flashback 2.
That sucks,
led me
dude.
to stumble on one of the most bizarre design choices of all. You see, Flashback 2's Game Over screen somewhat confusingly features two very similar options.
Continue
Resume
game or
and continue game. If you choose to continue, a list of your previous saves pops up for you to load from, which is more or less what you'd expect. However, if you choose to resume, then Conrad just magically comes back to life on the spot with almost a full health bar,
Damn.
no questions asked. That effectively neuters every enemy threat in Flashback 2, and both the collectible medkits and Conrad's rechargeable shield are rendered almost entirely unnecessary,
Dude.
since anytime you get killed you can always get straight back up and walk it off, like you just lost a lounge room Nerf gun battle.
They had to know, like, that was a problem. Block to the future.
Rising
Nice.
from the dead like an unstoppable Terminator can only get you so far, however, as I found out roughly 5 hours into Flashback 2's story, when I found myself trapped inside a boss fight arena with no actual boss to fight, and
Nice.
no way to cheaply resume my way through it. After my umpteenth loading of a prior save game, I retraced my steps and discovered the reason. The hulking monster that was supposed to chase me down and confront me had gotten stuck at the top of a flight of stairs,
Oh my
seemingly
God.
hesitant to take any further steps down like Ed 209 at the end of the original RoboCop.
No way.
What followed was a positively ludicrous scenario in which
He
I tried
pushed
to push
it.
and prod the beast down the
He
stairs and
pushed
into
it
the boss fight
down.
arena, with it stubbornly refusing to comply.
Oh
a bit
my
like trying to get your
God.
cat into the carrier when it knows full well that you're trying to take it to the vet. Just get in there, you big idiot.
Oh my God, I
Still,
would have
after wasting an
hated
exhausting
this.
couple of hours trying, I couldn't force this fight-fearing freak into battle. And it was only after Flashback 2 received its first post-release patch that the creature magically appeared inside the boss fight arena and I was
Holy
able
crap.
to confront it. And yet it still wouldn't take me on. Instead, it just marched on the spot up against the far wall of the arena, unable
What?
to escape and completely unwilling to fight.
Oh
so
my
I just
God.
shot it.
He sounds
And
so
shot it.
defeated.
And shot it.
Gojo
In fact,
the
I
Divided
kept the
One
trigger held
donated
down for well over
$15. 2 One Piece episodes also play Apex or RL, and I might talk in chat again, no cap.
Ah, maybe.
a half an hour.
Thanks,
I emptied
pizza.
a John Wick movie's worth of ammunition into its conflict-avoiding ass, without a health bar or any form of visible damage to clue me into how close, if at all, it was getting to death.
Oh my God,
Eventually,
dude.
after taking a break to ice my cramping trigger finger and check my sanity, I considered a different approach, which was to position myself between the monster and the wall and sort of herd him towards some electrified death traps using melee attacks, which was harder than it sounds since Conrad's punches and kicks are about as easy to land as a plane with no wheels. However, the good news is that this method eventually brought the beast to an electricity-charged end, and I was able to finally continue Flashback
Dude.
2's story.
I can't believe that, dude. I would have lost
Bad
my
news is
mind.
that not 10 minutes later, I had reached another progress stalling bug, this time involving a special battery I'd retrieved from the facility with the peace-loving boss monster. When I tried to return the battery to the village leader who had originally requested it, his response was to instruct me to go and retrieve the very same battery,
Now you need to get a battery from the research area in the east sector.
trapping us in some sort of recursive Abbott and Costello-style comedy routine with no way out.
Now you need to get a battery from the research area in the east sector.
It certainly seemed ironic that despite the fact the battery was in my inventory, I found myself completely powerless to progress beyond that point, and I had to set Flashback 2 aside entirely for several days before a second post-release patch eventually remedied the bug,
Done, Shaman. I got the mech and the battery.
and also made that NPC invisible for some
Wow.
I'm relatively happy to report that I didn't hit any further game-breaking glitches beyond that point, and was subsequently able to complete the story after about 10 miserable hours.
Miserable
But I'm sorry to say
hours.
that doesn't mean the remainder of Flashback 2 wasn't still rife with control problems, forced restarts, characters and enemies that blink in and out of
Yeah,
existence,
seen that.
and severe frame rate dips,
Damn,
all culminating in a calamitous final boss encounter that was about as well constructed as a barbecue assembled by Homer Simpson.
Nice.
The original Flashback was heavily inspired by Arnold Schwarzenegger's
Total Recall. Hell yeah.
But the
Good
closest
movie.
Flashback 2 will ever get to a Total Recall is if publisher Microids inevitably has to issue a Total Recall on every copy sold.
Damn,
I
man.
mean, look at this guy. He's just standing there while I shoot him.
Taking it to
And
win.
now I'm dying for
Are you-
no
wait,
apparent
what?
reason.
What? Wait, what? Oh my God,
And
dude.
now I've fallen through a couch.
I would lose my mind.
While the original Flashback
Three.
was an Amiga classic,
Three.
Flashback 2 can only be described as a meager sequel. Rehashed story elements, dull and clunky combat, a shockingly modest presentation, peculiar design decisions, and wholly unacceptable technical deficiencies, the bulk of which persist even after 2 post-release patches, make for an adventure that left me underwhelmed at best and utterly
Let's see if I got it right.
at worst.
They could have made an effort to decorate a bit.
While I'll always feel nostalgic for Conrad Hart's original adventure, Flashback 2 is unfortunately
I
not
can't-
the blast from the
2!
past.
I was saying 2 or 3.
Instead,
Oh
it's
my
a
God, it was 2. Nice.
Lucky to make
I was
that.
there. I was with
For
him.
more IGN reviews, check
That's
out our
rough,
verdicts
bro.
on
I'm
Super
sorry
Mario
he had to
RPG
play that,
and The
dude.
Last Faith.
I feel
And for
bad.
Anything else, stick with IGN.
All right, so that was a Flashback 2 review. Bro, if I played that game, I would be losing my ever-loving mind. That seems awful. Hate that. Would hate that. But yeah, it got a 2.